Peace. What's good, y'all? It's your brother God Science up in here once again. Shout out, special salute to the few that do watch the videos and subscribe. I really appreciate y'all, true indeed. Leaving comments, appreciate y'all, man. Let's talk some hip hop, all right? We're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Purple Tape, all right? Now, 1995, if you've been there, 1995, you had to be there to understand. Wu-Tang Clan was the biggest thing in hip-hop. When they came on the scene with the Enter the 36 Chambers, it was nothing like it. It was some of the rawest hip-hop that you've ever heard. Sounded like it was recorded in a basement with just a bunch of rough, rugged dudes just grabbing the mic over some beats that was just mind-blowing. And to top it off, they mixed in the martial arts stuff that was just genius. So, they was on the run. It was on a run. And right after that, I remember I was in Brooklyn. Now, back then in Brooklyn, people, if you're from New York, when you used to go down to Fulton, right? They had the bootleggers out there. Yeah, I gotta admit, Old Dirty Bastard album came out. I heard the single, Brooklyn Zoo. It was playing, Flex was playing it, Red Alert was playing. It was all over the radio. So I was like, I gotta get it. So me being lazy, there was a bootlegger right there. Sometimes you get a good copy. Sometimes you get a, messed up copy. And you could listen to the album. And if you like it, then you buy the original, or the CD. So that's what I used to do most of the time. But certain artists like Redman, I just buy the original because that's my dude. That's my favorite MC. But I bought Old Dirty Bastard album, and Old Dirty Bastard album was another chamber. It was like, this dude is just on a roll. I remember coming down my grandmother's stoop. I went up, she has a brownstone, so there are three. If you're from New York, you know what I'm talking about, those brownstones. So she was staying on the top, and I'm going down the stairs, and I have the Walkman on, and Rawhide comes on, and I'm like, oh, this dude, RZA, man. And just when you thought that it couldn't get any better, I remember, I think everybody remembers the first time they heard Only Built For Cuban Linx. And I remember the first time I heard Glaciers of Ice, which was the first single off the album. Now, it came on in Rhapsody, and my brother, rest in peace to my bro, you know what I mean, Supreme, Jamal, man, miss you, bro. But anyway, I'm in my room, and he just busts, yo, T, you gotta hear this. So I'm like, what? He's like, Raekwon new album, song. And I'm like, Raekwon got a new song? Because I didn't even know, back then we didn't have the internet, the source was basically the Bible. It told you what was coming out, what was in heavy rotation. It was the Bible of hip hop, period. You know what I mean? And I didn't know that Raekwon was coming up, but it came on Rap City. And when I went to that TV and I heard that beat, it sounded so crazy. I was like, yo, hold up. You ever heard a beat that was so dope that you just had to be like, yo, hold on. Pause that. What the hell am I listening to? Yo, rewind that. Of course, I couldn't rewind it, but I was just blown away. I'm like, yo, this dude is just getting better and better and better. So when I heard Glaciers of Ice, I knew Raekwon album was RZA was coming with it. He was actually doing different chambers. He was really in that shit. Every album was a different chamber. You know what I mean? And this album, from Glaciers of Ice, you can tell that, yo, he's coming with that heat. Now, I remember the day when it came out, we were supposed to go out, and my brother had the idea, my oldest brother, he's gonna steal, the Raekwon album. Now, we could have got it, but back then, being young and dumb, man. But so we all went to the mall. I remember the night. You know what I mean? We got our weed, everything. It was a ritual. You know what I'm saying? When a new album dropped, it was a ritual. We got the weed. You know, we go got the Deuce Deuce and Ows. I used to get the fruit punch. That was my favorite jump right there. Y'all know what I'm talking about if you're from that era. And we went into Sam Goody, and I don't know how to this day he took it, because it used to be like in that long plastic, and he stole the tape. And I remember we like walking, we walking back to the car, and we all like, and I'm like, yo, you stole the damn tape. So when we get inside the car, we pull out the tape and we see that it's purple. I'm like, oh shit. You know what I'm saying? Because Redman album, if you don't remember, there's a dark side. It was red. You know what I'm saying? So back then, a lot, albums were like movies, man. You know what I'm saying? And artists had concepts. They had concepts to the albums. So I remember we went in there and, we roll up the blunts. You could hear a pin drop, and that's in that car. It was me, my brother, my cousin Il Shorty, and Senile, my other cousin. You know what I mean? And we was about to go across town to meet up with my brother's girl. So it was probably like 45 minutes. So we was gonna listen to the whole album. So we got the blunts ready, you know what I mean? Back then, yeah, we used to experiment with drugs. We had some coke. I could never mess with the coke like that. I did not like to come down from it. You know what I mean? I did it a couple times. I was like, nah, I didn't really like it, so I stuck with weed. But we were just freaking out, like, yo, this shit is purple. So he popped in that tape, and let me tell you, man, from the beginning, the intro with him and Ghost talking, and you hearing the stuff in the background, and we just like, yo. And I'm in the back, of course, and me as a producer, what do we do when we first buy an album? We read the credits. So I'm going through the credits, looking at the artwork goes with the music. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of artists knows that back then. That's one of the reasons why I love the Redman so much. His art, his covers used to be dope, and it went with the music. So I'm just reading through it, and that's when I first seen like the AKA, Maximilian, and all the AKAs they got, and I'm reading through it. Of course, produced by the RZA, and they got a big picture in there with all of them standing. And I'm looking at the RZA face, and the RZA he has this look like, yeah, y'all don't know what the hell I'm about to drop on you. He has that look like, yo, I used to swear to RZA. Me and my brother used to always think the RZA was doing like heroin or something. And I know it sounds it sounds stupid now and crazy, but his music was so left. It was so dope. It moves you so much. It was like, yo, where's this dude pulling this shit from? He can't be human, man. This nigga's on heroin or some shit, man. That's how we used to be, yo. That's how dope, And don't get me wrong, Method Man album was dope, All of the albums that came, I always call Old Dirty Bastard album like it was like a comedy album. I was like halfway laughing through the whole album, but it was dope. But this album was different. And we put that album on and we drove, man. And every song that came on, especially when I heard Criminology, I was like, it sounded like a soundtrack. It sounded like RZA was really into this Chinese Wu-Tang shit. If you listen to it, I can't put it in words. The first time I heard Raekwon Only Built For Cuban Linx album, I could just tell you that it made me look at hip-hop totally different and music in general. And it made me like, wow, what you can do with music, where you can take it. You know what I mean? It was such an excitement, man. RZA, I say he had the glow. When I mean, if anybody knows about The Last Dragon, that movie that came out in the 80s with Bruce Leroy, and he was supposed to, when he knew that he was the master, he got the glow. That's what I used to call RZA around that time. He had the glow where anything he touched, anything he touched, it was just dope. And we listened to that album. The song that got me was Rainy Days. When Rainy Days came on and I heard that song, man, it just made me stop. Like, we was just looking at each other like, yo, man, what an album. What an album, bro. We played that album out till, you know, when you have a tape and you play it so much that the writing on the tape starts like erasing, like it starts rubbing off. That's how much we played that album, man. Of course, my neighbor, my next door neighbor, he had like a CD collection, so he got the CD. You know what I mean? But yeah, just want to give a shout out to Raekwon and the Wu-Tang and 30th anniversary. It's been that long, man. And you can still put that album on to this day and still get your mind blown and just, you know, it still sounds good, timeless music. But that first time you heard it, I mean, I've heard people talk about, you know, albums like the Beatles or Pink Floyd, you know, which is a dope album. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, the first time they heard that. This is the type of experience I'm talking about. I'm talking about a real experience when you listen to that album. And it was like, yo, this dude can't. And, you know, after listening to that album, I was like, nah, man, he can't top that. He can't top that. This is it. This is the pinnacle right here. And, of course, you know, he proved me wrong. And if you look, the dopest thing about it, and I won't make the video too long, the dopest part about it, what Wu-Tang was doing, if you look on the Ice Cream video, Method Man is standing on the truck, and he has on the way they were turning the Wu sign, like a Method Man, they turned it upside down for the M. And then Raekwon, they had it with the W, but in the middle, they had it going through like Raekwon in the middle, right? And then if you look at Ice Cream video and you see Method Man, he's on the truck and he got it, they turn it around to a G. So I always caught that. And I remember a couple of months past that, I heard Labels, which was the first single that came off Liquid Swords. And I was like, yo, he did it again. He did it again. You know what I mean? That album. So shout out to the Purple Tape, man. One of the most stolen tapes. Yes, I remember, yo, everybody used to be stealing them, that Purple Tape, man. Like, you had to, like, guard it, you know? And I was actually in work release. Yeah, I was a knucklehead back in the days. So I did some time in work release, right? And this is when I knew that Purple Tape was dope, you know? Coming down here in Florida, you know, got into some trouble, you know, and I was in work release. A lot of dudes from Florida, they were listening to, you know, a lot of Luke's, you know, they call it booty music, but, you know, they was listening to stuff like that, you know. But I remember this dude, he came to me, and we used to trade tapes in there. And he was like, yo, but I love that Purple Tape, man. You got that Purple Tape? And I was like, yeah, and I gave it to him. And that's when I knew, like, yo, this album is special because it just transcended. Whether you were from the South, the West Coast, New York, wherever, that album made an impact. You know what I mean? And to this day, you know, it's like one of the dopest albums that was ever created. I always wanted to ask RZA, and I went to their, you know, like I said, I met them. It was one of my, you know, it's something that I'll never forget because I grew up to these brothers, you know what I mean? And being able to see them right inches in front of your face was crazy. But I always wanted to ask RZA, what the hell were you thinking when you were in that basement making this album, bro? Especially when you heard, like, Verbal Intercourse, that beat. No more to be said. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I didn't mean for it to be this long, but you know what I mean? I love hip-hop, And these, experiences with music is what shaped me to be, to be so interested in music. Like the RZA, one of the dopest producers ever. You know, he the things that he was doing, it was just like, it was such an excitement. That's why they call the 90s the golden era. And I'm not shitting on, the new artists. There's a lot of good new artists out here. You just got to look for them. You know what I mean? But the 90s, they didn't just make singles. Album, they made a body of work, an album, and a sequence in it. Everything, every part of it meant something. The sequencing, the album cover, everything, it went with the music. It was like a ritual. And listening to that album was ice water. When that album came on, of course, Ghost and and then it was perfect how Ghost was doing that. Man, like I said, I could sit here and talk about that album all day. But it was dope how he was talking about, the wallabies in there, and then on his album cover, he got the different color wallabies. But that, that was the genius of Wu-Tang, man. RZA is definitely the Abbott. So even though, I'm disappointed in a lot in the new music that he puts out, I always have to bow down and give him his respect for what he did with those first solo albums. And that flood that he had, we just got robbed of music. I would do, man, to hear what he had or what he lost. Inspector Deck album, I would love to hear that. Oh my God. He put one of his CDs, those discs, in that time capsule that he talked about. I hope in the future that somebody can fix it and we can hear some of those beats at that time when RZA was making music, because he was in a zone, bro. He was in a zone. The bad thing about it is they set the standard so high. Anytime the RZA was gonna come out with something, it was like, yo, it's about to change the world. I remember when I heard about The Cure, I'm like, yo, The Cure, this dude is coming out with the album. Me and my brother's like, yo, this shit gonna stop the world, baby. Because, we're going off of what he put out, Of course, that album never came out, but anyway, happy anniversary to, Only Built For Cuban Linx, one of the dopest albums ever created. And he just came back and followed it up with Liquid Swords, a whole nother chamber, which has one of my favorite beats that RZA ever did, which is Swordsman, like close to the last song on the album. But thank you guys for watching. I'm about to get out of here because some mosquitoes is coming now. But thank you guys for watching. If you want to put your experience, do you remember the first time you heard Only Built For Cuban Linx, what you thought? Like I said, man, it was an experience, man. It was like, that album was played, I think, for months. We was just on it until, Liquid Swords drops. And even when Liquid Swords dropped, we was still rocking out to Raekwon, man. But dope album, dope album. Thank you guys for watching. Y'all stay safe out there. Like the video, subscribe. We talk about hip hop here, you know what I mean? New stuff, old stuff. I'm gonna do that, review. I've been on that Alchemist and Freddie Gibbs dope album. I'm gonna give my review of it, my take. But let me know what you think about, Only Built For Cuban Linx. What was your experience when you first listened to it? Did it blow your mind? Did you have to stop the tape and be like, damn? You know what I mean? I never met anybody that said they didn't like the album. But, anyway, peace.